Today in this video, I'm going to talk about travel tripods. However, they're not going to be the most normal travel tripods. These tripods are going to be different. See, this is a conventional tripod right here, a travel tripod. But you notice that there might be some steps. I had to lock a leg. I had to extend these legs, and if they don't lock, they don't stay in place. I am not going to talk about these tripods. I'm going to talk about more simplistic tripods, maybe like this little adapted GoPro one. Okay, so it just has a 1/4 mount. You pull and you open it up, and it is a little tripod. Okay, so this isn't the only one, but the whole idea behind this video is to find the perfect tripod, the tripod that you will be using on your merry little trip overseas or on an airplane somewhere. These tripods, they're going to be fast, intuitive, small, friendly to use with your Pocket 3, with your ZV cameras, with your cell phone, or even a really small APS-C lens full frame camera.
Wow.
All right, so the idea once again is just small, intuitive, and can work for the Pocket 3, maybe ZV camera. Oh man, my phone is charging. Or phone on the charger. Okay, so these small devices, GoPros, whatnot. So I'll try not to drag out this video too long because I have a lot of tripods right there. And these are tripods that I just use because I do YouTube stuff, and this is what I've acquired over the years, some like even involuntarily, because I may have bought a GoPro and this guy just gave me 3 or 4 tripods to go with it, so I really couldn't turn it down. So first off is this little foamy bendy leg thing. This thing is extremely easy to use. You can adjust the height and adjust this ball head. Other than that, I believe this entire thing is plastic. That is the downside. So it cannot handle a lot of weight. It is extremely lightweight. It is extremely inexpensive. I believe $4 on eBay. So these are good for the smallest of small cameras, and they're good for small lights as well. Big cameras like the one filming, you can forget about it. Next up is this really simple one. I mean, I got this with the Osmo gimbal. Okay, but I do use it because I just like how simple it is. If I know I'm going to put a device like the Osmo Pocket 3 on the floor, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it can be slanted, it can be straight. It just needs a wide footprint. And when the Osmo Pocket 3 is on the floor, it can tilt the head, it can move the camera angle. So this is good to have around. It is extremely lightweight. It has sticky stuff on the bottom so it doesn't move around. It's solid as heck. And there's rubber lining here, or high quality silicone. This is generally a good one. I believe this one costs maybe $8. I wouldn't spend more than that because there's other tripods on this list that can do better. Like I said, here's another one, a small one for GoPros. I like this one because this one it's really small. The handle is like smaller than your palm. I mean, on top of that, okay, so it's a basic tripod and it extends, so you're not just flat on the floor like the GoPro, like the DJI one. And it just works really good. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with heavier stuff. Let me see if even this one, it might be an issue. But with the Pocket 3, it's not a problem because that's even lighter. Oh, look at that. Wow, I've never tried it with this because I felt that it was too not strong enough. Okay, so yeah, wow. But you can feel that it is sinking when you're doing this. So there you go. GoPro, nice one. This one's probably expensive though. I wouldn't go out buying it. I just got it with my GoPro, which was like, I got the GoPro for like $50 a long while ago, and gave me all of its accessories and just didn't want any hands involved. Okay, so moving on. This is one of my favorite Ulanzi ones, and I do have a lot of Ulanzi tripods, and I don't use them because they have the head on top, and they could be full metal, which makes it a lot heavier. But they have that quick release system on top, and I'm not a fan of it. I know there's a lot of big influencers that like that Ulanzi stuff because they may have gotten a full set with it. But keep in mind, I have Peak Design plates. I have could be really right stuff plates. I have all different sorts of plates, and the Ulanzi, it's not universal fit. Their plates are slightly smaller. I'm just not a fan of that. I don't really want to go towards a whole new system before making stuff work. And lately I've just been going with screw only, and I'll get to that a little bit later why. Okay, so this is the MT42, Ulanzi MT42, and it will work with like a ZV camera or 300, even a 400 gram range camera would work. This thing is, I guess, one of the few that started it all. Okay, it's easy to use. You just open it up. It's plastic yet somewhat rigid. These have rubber on it, so it's really comfortable. I wish like a lot more tripods were designed like this Ulanzi. It is, I mean, it's a little bit flexible or whatever, but it's so easy to hold and grippy. Okay, but other than that, the stance is nice and wide. The screw-in's easy. There's a code shoe, and this isn't the best ball head. I mean, none of these are going to have great ball heads for the price, but I believe I got this for $10 on sale. Okay, it's been a few years, and I still love it. Okay, moving on. This bendy tripod. These things, I believe they go on sale on Amazon all the time, and this should have cost like no more than $12. It's always nice to have these around instead of like the Joby, but I do have the Joby as well because this thing really just cannot handle as much weight as the Joby. These legs are small, they're weak, and that's how they are. Yeah, it did come with this ball head, so it's lightweight, very easy to use. The legs curl up, and they do break over time just like the Joby. Even though they don't look like it, they'll break right at the hinge. All right, next up is the old school GorillaPod, and this is the 3K Pro. There are other versions. What's great about this is that it's super easy to use. When you hold it, it's grippy. And the downside is that these legs, they will die over time. If you have the Pro versions, they last longer than the normal plastic. I mean, they are colder because it is steel, aluminum, some sort. And these things, if you can get them for, I say $10 to $40 in that range, then it's a good buy. Other than that, it's not that great of a buy. I mean, Joby does stand for their product, so you are paying for the service. I've broken this one before, or one like this, and they got me another one. And this one, the aluminum types, they're great. They last a lot longer. So the head, I would go headless and get these Linko tripods. So I want to segment to the heads in case you're wondering. This is a Linko. It's for like lights. It's a mini ball head, and this thing is a 1/4 inch on the bottom, 1/4 inch on the top. It's made of nylon. And why I like these heads more than conventional heads is that because it's made of nylon, it is ultra lightweight. On top of that, it is ultra cheap. You can get like a 32. Let me show you my bag. I got a bag of these like years ago, and I still have the original bags. And you just have like 32 heads. This thing cost me $20 back then. But now, because everybody has lost their ability for spending power, and the dollar's not that strong anymore, it's now $30 for 32. Before, when it was 20 for 32, it was a lot better deal. But it is what it is, right? So instead of spending for a regular metal ball head or just a cheap ball head, even something like this cheap might cost you $10 to $15. Okay, if you're buying just this ball head by itself. But these things, they're under $1 each, and it is incredible because they do the job. It just holds up a camera and it can hold it stiff. You can hold up to, I would say, 2.5 pounds or 3 pounds. I wouldn't go beyond that because this thing wasn't made for really large, like a full frame setup with a really large lens. So this is a Micro Four Thirds camera, and this would probably be the limit. Okay, so this is a Micro Four Thirds. You can see that it might flop, but if you tighten it down, it could work with this. It's not like a super robust head or anything like that. I'm not claiming it to be, but it can work with larger cameras. Okay, so, but I wouldn't go beyond this. So if you're looking for a lot of cheap heads, ball heads, the Linko nylons, they do work great, and especially if you have a lot of tripods, so it can be a really good money saver, and it does work well. It's, like I said, it's nylon, it's durable. I've never had one break. I've dropped them plenty of times. So once again, the Joby GorillaPod, it is nice, but it's kind of expensive. Okay. So moving on to my final three, and these are going to be good. Of course, the MT-03 by Leofoto. This one is my go-to tripod, and I've added a little Peak Design clip and whatever this is called, and this goes to my belt. So my rig can sit upside down like that. It is fantastic. And aside from that, these tripod legs, they have 1/4-20 mounts everywhere. It is not as smooth to use as those previous tripods, but okay, so it has height and it has stiff legs. These legs, they're never gonna go bad. They are strong, and it can go low. So I like this tripod. It is my main one. It is kind of pricey though. I believe it's $70, or I might have got it for $60, again before inflation, but now it's like $75, I believe. It's solid. This thing is solid, and it weighs a little bit too, so that's another downside. For its size, you would think it would weigh a lot less, but no, this whole setup is around 200-ish grams. Okay, so moving on to these oddities. So this one, we're getting into larger tripods, but the world of tripods has changed a lot. And this one, it opens it up. The leg is really odd. And there's a tightening and loosening thing, which I don't really like, but it's kind of, this thing is like a light stand. You see, it has a wide base, and the base, I believe, is like, the leg is like 11-inch long, and it has this tightening knob. The leg itself is made from some sort of durable, maybe ABS plastic. It feels durable, and on top of that, this whole section right here, you see, it can go this low, which is maybe a foot high or off the ground. Okay, so it can get kind of low in terms of a full-size tripod, which this would compare to. However, it can hold up the weight, and it can extend extremely fast. And that is what makes these types of tripods winners in my eyes. Because if I'm going to travel, I'm going to take one of these because sure, it can't handle the wind, and I wouldn't trust it for long exposures at full height, that is. But other than that, this thing can go high. This thing can go 60 inches, like the size of like an Asian lady or something. It's great, and it can hold weight. You can put a full frame camera on top of this, as long as you don't have like a overly aggressive large lens, and it will not collapse on itself. This one costs a little bit less. It costs around $20, and it has a basic tilt head. And aside from that, the rest of the parts, they're like plastic. It weighs about 300-ish grams. Overall, it's just great. The downside is that at full height, when you're using this, it can get a bit iffy, especially if you're not on a level ground. So that is one of the concerns with these ones, because if you're going full height, 60 inches up, you don't want to be off balance. You need to be balanced so that you can handle some sort of wind and your stuff just doesn't fall over and crash to the ground. Moving on to the next one, and my final one. This is similar to that previous one, and the difference with this one is that it has some sort of metal build, which I'm not a great fan of, to be honest, because it's cold and it doesn't feel like a robust metal, but it is some sort of metal build. This one is easier to use. It's even easier to use because you see that I just pushed the bottom and it came up. It doesn't have a locking mechanism, and it doesn't really need one. So if you have it at this height, for instance, you really don't need a locking mechanism because the friction on this tripod, it doesn't allow it to change shape. And on top of that, the rubber feet is not going to allow the feet to expand when it's on the floor. So between the friction and the rubber, the compression, it doesn't really need locks. And that's what makes it so darn convenient, because you just open it up, whatever height you want, and there you go, it's done. And on top of that, for the Pocket 3 users, it has 2 cold shoe mounts. I mean, it could be any user, right? Having cold shoe mounts on the ball head, it has a mini plastic ball head. Granted, this one isn't even as strong as those Linkos I showed previously, but it is attached to the device. It's not going anywhere. And it has this 1/4-20 slot on the bottom. So the last thing about this is that because you're using these tripods on the ground and they seem like they need a flat surface, this one has a special trick, and that is the extending feet. It's kind of like a self-leveling light stand. Check that out. That extending feet right here, that can totally make the difference between steady and unsteady, because you can now level your tripod any way you want it. So once you're standing up all the way, because once you want to go high, you want to extend the legs as far out as possible to be stable. But if it's tilted one direction, I can just pull out the leg, and that would, okay, that would even out the bottom like that, okay? So that would handle like a downwards tilt right there. So it's just incredible that this thing has that extra maneuverability, and that extra maneuverability and this metal part, that means that this tripod is a little bit more expensive. Well, it's a lot more expensive. The previous one I showed that had the same ability of going really high, this one costs $20 $20 or less. I'm pretty sure it was even less than that. This one costs $40. Okay, so that's double the price, but you don't really get double the quality. It's just double the price, and the quality is good, but it's not the greatest. However, the flexibility is clearly the best out of the bunch. So this thing is going to come in around 400 grams ish. So it is getting a little bit heavier. However, you have a tripod that can work as a selfie stick. You have a tripod that can go 5 feet high or 60 inches. And you have a tripod that can go on uneven ground. It's just the flexibility of this is unmatched with those other tripods. So on a side note, because I've been using the Pocket 3 a bit more, I've been trying to find tripods that have this style of head. So that means that I am trying to cut down the weight as much as possible, not pocketable. The Pocket 3 has the bottom quarter 20 mount, and because of that bottom quarter 20 mount, I had to question, am I going to use a bottom plate on this and cover up the usefulness? I decided I'm not, and I've been using my larger cameras like this ZV-1 or ZVE-1 or even the Olympus right there with just quarter 20 mounts. I've been deviating away from using bottom plates, and that is one additional way I've gotten my gear to go smaller. That means no plate on the bottom and no clamp. And sometimes those tripod clamps, they could be like 50 to 80 grams a piece. And because of that, now I have this plastic piece. This thing is much lighter now than it was when I had that other metal tripod, and the amount of time it takes to screw in the screw it's a little bit longer than a quick connect, but it's not really that bad either. Here I am doing it real time, and it's done. On top of that, when you're screwing it on, it's kind of like you're screwing on your tripod plate in the top, but you know for sure you're in there, and this isn't going to fall apart. So it's the negative side is that, yeah, you have to hand tighten everything. And the positive side is that once you're hand tightened, you are in the groove and you aren't going to drop your camera. So there's that. I have this big compression type, which I love. The Joby GorillaPods, they're all right. But, you know, these new larger ones for really high shots, they are a new and interesting way of looking at tripods. I like the compression type legs. They were never strong enough for what I liked in previous like iterations. Even say this Ulanzi. This thing is small, but guess what? This thing cannot hold as much weight as one of these 60 inchers at full length. That is kind of crazy when you think about it, because the 60 incher at full length versus this Ulanzi at this length, I mean, there's no comparison. Check this out. I mean, there's no comparison in the sizes, and this one, believe it or not, can hold more weight than this little guy. And it's just so odd that it can do that, right? It's just fantastic. And I got the original idea from the Insta360, because they've moved away from all of these types of tripods, and they've done all these compression type extensions. In the past, they had like locking arms and whatnot, and the compression style worked just fine. So why wouldn't I trust the compression? I'm using this Insta360 1-inch, and it is a fat little heavy 360 camera. Anyhow, I've rambled on far too long. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. See you in the next one. Take care.